All right. It was another bruising night under the lights for Celtic, and not in the kind of European theater fans dream of. Celtic's defeat to Braga at home was more than just a slip. It felt like a glaring reminder of where the club is right now. From the opening whistle, there was a weird mix of energy and fragility. The first 15 minutes gave a hint of promise. Tempo was decent, the ball was moving with purpose, and there was urgency in the second balls. You could feel the crowd trying to get on board with it, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the team had something to say in Europe this time. But that hope evaporated fast. Kasper Schmeichel was at the heart of it, and not in a good way. The experienced keeper had a few clumsy moments early on with the ball at his feet, and they weren't just minor missteps. He gifted Braga possession twice in quick succession, and you could sense the nerves trickling from the stands down to the pitch. The atmosphere shifted. The early confidence seemed to drain from the players, and suddenly it was like watching a completely different team, tentative, unsure, and rattled. And then came the hammer blow. Schmeichel, again in the spotlight, failed to deal with what was, frankly, a speculative effort from distance. Porta stepped up, let fly from about 30 yards, and somehow the ball ended up in the back of the net. Replays showed Schmeichel got a hand to it. Well, the wrong hand, bizarrely enough, and couldn't keep it out. His positioning wasn't terrible, but the decision to reach across with the right instead of sticking out the left looked amateurish. It was the kind of moment you rarely see at this level, and it left fans stunned. You want your experienced players to calm things down in moments like that, not be the cause of the panic. There was a similar vibe to that meltdown against Rangers at Ibrox not too long ago. Remember Joe Hart's blunder under pressure? It had the same energy. A game that felt winnable, under control even, just unraveled because of a moment of madness from the keeper. And when that happens, especially at home in Europe, it's a killer. You need to stay composed, build into the game, and keep belief flowing through the side. But that goal, and the manner of it, just completely flattened Celtic. Schmeichel's body language didn't help either. After the mistake, instead of showing urgency or trying to reset, it looked like he just shrugged and blamed others. Negrin took some stick from him, undeservedly so. That kind of attitude from one of the leaders on the pitch? It's worrying. This isn't the first time this season that questions have been raised about Schmeichel's form, and tonight might be the final straw for a lot of supporters. He started his Celtic career well, strong saves, composed distribution, a real calming influence. But that version of Schmeichel seems like a distant memory. Now it feels like fans are just waiting for the next blunder, not the next big save. And you know what's even more alarming? That lack of accountability isn't limited to the keeper. There's a creeping trend in this squad where experienced players deflect responsibility, pass the blame, and fail to step up when it matters most. These are the players who are supposed to drag the team through nights like this. Instead, we're seeing pointing fingers and shrunken shoulders. Brendan Rodgers spoke ahead of the game about character, whether this team had the resilience to respond in tough moments. Well, the answer on this evidence is no. When Braga scored, Celtic didn't fight back. There was no collective surge, no galvanized response from the stands or the players. It all just faded. The crowd was decent, but not at full capacity, and when the goal went in, there was this heavy silence. You can call it apathy, you can call it disbelief, but either way, it's not what you want to see in a European night at Celtic Park. And let's talk about the tactics, or the lack of them. Because aside from giving the ball to Sebastian Hickey and hoping he produces magic, there was no clear plan for how Celtic were going to break Braga down. It was unimaginative, one-dimensional football. Pass it out wide. Hope Hickey beats his man and delivers something special. That was it. For a club with Champions League ambitions, that's unacceptable. Even the most generous assessment would struggle to identify a cohesive attacking strategy beyond give it to the winger. Hickey, for his part, was the standout. Again, he played with flair, confidence, and actually looked like he cared. He combined well with Sarah when he came on, and they were pretty much the only bright sparks in a very dim Celtic performance. But he can't do it all himself. It's unfair to expect a young winger, still developing, to carry the creative burden of an entire team. What's even more concerning is how exposed Celtic looked defensively, especially down the flanks. Every time Braga launched a ball out wide, it felt like danger. There's no shape, no awareness of runners, and no tracking back with urgency. This wasn't just a case of getting caught on the break. It was systemic weakness in the setup. And if that's going to be the fallback option when the usual 4-3-3 isn't working, switching to a 3 at the back or some awkward 3-6-1, then even domestic sides like Motherwell are going to cause serious problems. And then there's the goal that wasn't. Kelechi Iheanacho seemed to have pulled Celtic level with a smart, composed finish after capitalizing on a defensive error. The stadium lifted, the players lifted, and it felt like Celtic were finally going to turn the tide. But no. VAR intervened. Referee points to a supposed handball. Multiple replays showed it didn't hit his hand. It came off his head, clear as day. No deflection, no ambiguity, no arm involved. But somehow, the goal was ruled out. It's baffling. And it killed the little momentum Celtic had managed to muster. This isn't about VAR ruining the game. It's about officials not understanding what they're watching. This isn't the first time something like this has happened to Celtic. But on a European stage, the margins are even finer. That should have been the equalizer. It should have been the spark. Instead, it felt like the plug was pulled on any remaining belief. From that point on, substitutions were made, but they didn't help. If anything, they slowed the game down. Hickey came on and immediately started knocking the ball backwards. Bernardo, who was poor all night, made way, but his replacement didn't improve anything. Engels barely touched the ball. It was sideways, safety-first football from players who should have been chasing the game. Celtic needed urgency, they got hesitation. Needed aggression, got passivity. And once again, that comes back to leadership. Braga's second goal summed it all up. Comical defending, no urgency, a soft concession that ended any hope of a comeback. And the most damning thing? The fans didn't even react with anger. No boos, no chants, no visible frustration. Just silence. They just walked out. That's not passion, it's resignation. It's the feeling that nothing is going to change. And that's the biggest problem Celtic are facing right now. Not just individual performances or tactical issues, but something deeper. This looks like a team that's run its course. A group that's lost its spark. There's no drive, no vision, no sense of unity. Players who once carried the badge with pride now look like they're going through the motions. Managers who were once celebrated look out of answers. And supporters, who have seen this club achieve so much, now feel utterly disconnected from what's unfolding in front of them. It's honestly hard to remember the last time Celtic felt this disconnected, on the pitch, in the stands, behind the scenes. The vibes right now are more aligned with the co-season than anything from Brendan Rodgers' first spell in charge. Back then, even in the tough moments, you could feel something building. The results weren't always perfect, sure, but there was a structure, an identity, a direction. Fans were angry at times, but that anger came from belief. It was the kind of frustration that came with high standards. This time around, it feels like apathy has taken hold. And that's the scariest place to be. When Braga scored that second goal, it wasn't a moment of fury or disbelief. It was just silence. Acceptance. The game was done, and the fans knew it. There was no rallying cry, no collective groan. Just the stadium slowly emptying while the players trudged back to the center circle. That's the moment that tells you something deeper is wrong. You can recover from a bad performance, even from a defeat. But when the belief starts draining out of the fan base and the squad alike, that's a crisis of a different kind. What makes this worse is that it all feels preventable. Celtic didn't get here overnight. This isn't about one match or one bad signing. It's been a slow decline, papered over by domestic dominance and the occasional flash in Europe. But under the surface, this has been coming. You lose your key players, the ones that made the system work, and then you fail to properly replace them. It doesn't take long for the cracks to show. And now they're not just cracks, they're fault lines running through the entire squad. You look at this midfield, and honestly, where's the spark? Where's the creativity? Where's the player who can take a game by the scruff of the neck and change its direction? Matt O'Reilly used to be that player. Last season, he dragged us through games, scored important goals, made the difference when things got tight. Right now, he looks a shadow of himself. McGregor, the captain, has also regressed. He still puts in the work, sure, but that edge, that drive that made him so vital, it's fading. The midfield is toothless. No bite, no invention, no control. Negrin still feels like nobody really knows what kind of player he is. Bernardo showed promise early on, but has gone backwards rapidly. Hickey used to be a game changer. Now he comes off the bench and passes sideways for 20 minutes. Where's the urgency? Where's the intent? There's just nothing there that inspires confidence. These aren't bad players individually, but collectively, this midfield doesn't function. There's no balance, no rhythm, and worst of all, no goals. And what's equally frustrating is that this isn't just about individual form. The system itself is broken. Celtic don't play as a team anymore. It's all disjointed, full of hesitation and half-baked ideas. The movement is slow, the passing predictable, and the build-up play is easy to defend against. Hickey is doing his best to be that spark out wide, but the burden is too much. He's a talented winger, yes, but he needs support, players running off him, midfielders arriving late in the box, a striker with movement to open up space. Right now, he's being asked to beat 2 or 3 men every time he gets the ball and create something out of nothing. That's not sustainable. And the striker situation? It's just as messy. Hickey Nathan showed his quality with the disallowed goal, a finish that had power and composure. But outside of that moment, he looked isolated. He had scraps to feed off, and again, that comes back to the team structure. There's no consistent supply, no through balls, no variety, just long spells of sideways passes and hope. Defensively, it's not total chaos, but there are warning signs. Carter Vickers and Scales have held things together in moments. But when teams go wide and stretch Celtic, it all starts to fall apart. The fullbacks are getting exposed constantly, and there's not enough cover for midfield. That's a tactical problem. And again, it comes down to Rodgers. For all the talk about him being a system coach, there's no system here that's working. When the 4-3-3 fails, the alternative is, what exactly? A muddled back three? A shape that leaves the wings totally vulnerable? We saw it against Braga, and it wasn't pretty. The substitutions late on told their own story. Instead of injecting life into the match, they slowed it down. They dulled what little momentum Celtic had. The ball went backwards, the tempo dropped, and Braga were never really threatened again. It's not just about the players that came on. It's about the message those changes sent. It felt like waving the white flag, like Rodgers had run out of ideas and was just hoping something might fall our way. But football doesn't work like that, especially not in Europe. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are growing louder around Glasgow this week, and they carry the weight of something close to historic. Word on the street is that Celtic have managed the unthinkable, securing both Hickey and Nathan Patterson as their fullbacks for the season ahead. It is, if confirmed, the sort of pairing that feels ripped from a Scotland supporter's fever dream. Two of the nation's brightest young defenders, usually viewed as rivals in the international setup, now destined to patrol the flanks in green and white hoops. The talk began in hushed tones, a few murmurs in pubs across the East End, then gathered steam online as hints of deals emerged. Hickey, long admired for his versatility and cultured left foot, has often been tipped for a return north after his ventures abroad. Patterson, on the other hand, carries the mark of Rangers' proud academy, making the rumor of his move across the old firm divide all the more explosive. The very idea of him donning a Celtic shirt has already sent forums into meltdown, sparking equal parts disbelief and giddy excitement. If this story proves true, the impact on Celtic's shape could be immense. Hickey brings balance, composure, and a rare ability to step into midfield, while Patterson thrives on energy, overlapping runs, and fearless tackling. Together, they would offer width, dynamism, and a new kind of swagger to a side already rich in attacking intent. The whispers suggest Postecoglou has been quietly pushing for this audacious double swoop, convinced that both players could redefine how Celtic build from the back. Still, amid the growing chatter, no one has yet produced the smoking gun of official confirmation. Until the club issues its word, the news remains somewhere between gossip and destiny. Yet in Scotland, rumors often carry the heat of truth, and this one is burning brighter by the hour. Imagine the roar at Parkhead if Hickey and Patterson step out side by side in the famous hoops. It would be more than a signing coup. It would be a moment etched into Celtic folklore before a ball is even kicked. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.